Do you crave better self esteem and confidence, but struggle to silence your anxiety, fears, and insecurities? If so, welcome to the Sisterhood of fellow travelers on the path to reclaiming their self confidence and happiness. I'm Jennifer DeBellis, award winning author, speaker, and assault survivor. I spent the past few decades helping young women like you overcome fear, self doubt, and trauma to reclaim their joy and self worth. I cannot wait to share the secrets I learned on my own healing journey and help you restore your inner warrior as I show you the skills and tools you need to save your own broken world. If you're ready to empower your inner warrior to overcome fear, doubt, and anxiety, turn off those distractions and tune in to this episode. Today's episode explores how to make sense of our own wilderness and develop strategies to navigate its challenges and complexities. Think of these strategies as keys that unlock our thinking on our internal struggles and actions for our external obstacles. These keys then open the doors to better clarity and meanings about moments of emotional uncertainty, isolation, or life changes. I know how scary and surreal it feels to navigate these struggles without a solid survival plan and wilderness wisdom to apply to it. And I cannot wait to show you how to begin your own journey with the right tools, tricks, thinking, and wisdom to know what to do with all of this knowledge. Before we get into this episode, I'd like to take a moment to remind you to join my free Facebook group, the Restore Your Inner Warrior Sisterhood. This is a safe space to get tips, share stories, and gain community support. So, about today's episode. Your personal growth and inner healing begin with a healthy dose of Survival 101 basic training and a lesson on what it means to operate with wilderness wisdom. This is not going to be a message about how others are your problem and how to fix them, though I do know that others are often the ones causing the problems or creating the situations where you are left feeling like you're in a new wilderness and you have no idea how to find your way out. But this here today is a masterclass about how to become a student of yourself. When approached constructively, what follows will unlock parts of your human experience you only dreamed of and have been waiting to gain access to. So to do this, we'll hear about my younger experiences that forced me into a new wilderness where I had to put my survival skills to work while figuring out new ones in real time. Learn what a personal survival guide is and how it evolves with each experience, and gain a better understanding of how to tap into your wilderness wisdom. So, I'm going to open with something that is from my book, Warrior Sister Cut Yourself Free, because I really thought that it spoke to what we're talking about here today. So, this is from a section that is Every Story Has a Hero. So sometimes life throws us into situations where we must become our own hero and save our own lost world. The hero's journey is so prevalent in our culture that we see it emerge in blockbuster movie after movie. Take the movie Alita Battle Angel, for example. Cyborg Alita confronts a futuristic world left in ruins after a war that devastated Earth. In the unrecognizable metropolis of Iron City, she must fight the powerful who prey on the weak to rediscover her lost identity and restore her world. One of the most striking lines in the movie is when Alita says, "It's the loneliest feeling not to know who you are." To which the scientist, Dr. Dyson Ito, replies, "You'll remember in time." Sometimes we come out of an experience or we're in the middle of an experience where we feel like, we're coming out of a nightmare. We open our eyes and the whole world as we know it looks different. And, in those instances, sometimes our power and parts of our identity can be stripped away from us. And so now we're stuck in this wilderness where we must not only find our way out, but we must apply some survival skills to make it out alive and intact. So this kind of reminds me of some stories some experiences that I had in junior and senior high. I wasn't sure what I was going to share with you guys today. And to be honest, I didn't want to share these stories. I have never shared these stories outside of a very small group setting with close friends and loved ones, and maybe a therapist or two in the years past. But so I did mention this in another episode or two about having experiences from my younger years that really, challenged me to, set better boundaries and have better game plans and, have better survival skills. And so, you know, growing up, I was often the new kid at school all the way up until right before junior high. And then I had a small friend group and a couple of friends that I thought were really, really close friends. And, one day, toward the end of the school year, someone who I thought was my best friend just decided she didn't want to be friends with me anymore. So she just completely stopped talking to me when I got to school. No one at school would talk to me. To this day, I really don't know what she did or said to turn everybody against me. I don't know if it was more a matter of, early cancel culture, if my peers were smart enough to know, like, if she's going to do that to me, then she can do that to any one of us. And so they were just like, we're good. We'll stay away. We'll do whatever. I'm not really sure, but it was heartbreaking to go through. I mean, just imagine showing up at school and, having a lot of friends, very close friends, and then, friends that you hung out with at football games or you played sports with or you were in the band with or you had classes with all day, and then no one's talking to you, or you're walking through the halls, people are tripping you, they're spitting on you, no one's talking to you in classes, no one will let you sit by them at lunch. I mean, it's every single where, place you go. And the interesting thing about that first time with this individual, she did it to me twice. So the interesting thing about the first time with this individual was it had happened right after our junior high had gotten together with the other junior high that were both planning on the next school year going up to the high school together. And so it was kind of like this mixer that they had for us. And during that dance, I met a couple of people. I had known a couple of people that I had seen at like open swim at the high school that we were going to. And I met a couple people, exchanged phone numbers. This is back before cell phones and the internet. So you had to like dial people's phone number on your house phone, your landline. And you had to, go to people's houses, show up at their door if they didn't answer the phone or they didn't call you back and see if they wanted to come hang out. These were different times back then. And so I had these friends at the other school, and I even had, there was a guy who I was interested in, who one of the girlfriends that I had was like, he really likes you. And so I had already started hanging out with some of these other individuals. A couple of them actually already went to the high school. They were a year older. And thank God. Thank God that I didn't have, as the saying goes, all my eggs in one basket, because that would have been devastating. That would have been social suicide. And trust me, when I went to school and then I'd have to go and my mom wouldn't let me stay home and she really didn't understand the magnitude of what I was experiencing, I didn't want to live. So there were a lot of feelings and emotions of hopelessness and how can I go on? This might have only happened for a month or the last probably 5 or 6 weeks of the school year, but that feels like dog years to a teenager. And so I made it through. Thank God for the weekends. Thank God for after school because I did have this other friend group and then summer came and I hung out with all these friends and it was pretty amazing. I was pretty a wreck during those times, so that guy that I was dating was such a good, nice guy, and I screwed that up. What are you gonna do when you're a wreck? What are you gonna do? And you don't have all the survival skills in place. But some of the things that I learned in that earlier experience was I had advantages. We don't come to an experience with no knowledge or no prior experience and tricks and tips. And so the advantage that I had was I knew what it was like to be the new kid and to not know anybody. And so I was already, you know, going into that kind of mode when this started happening. And so I can get into that quiet place where, oh my God, nobody likes me here, nobody knows me here. And then I have these other outlets and they were a great lifeline. And then, next thing you know, summer's there. Some of these friends had driver's license already. So it was like this new freedom opens up. We start the new school year. Eventually, this individual who wreaked all this havoc on me, apologizes. I befriend her into this friend group, and she starts, tightly weaving herself into this friend group. And then about a year and a half later is when the second round happens. And in this instance, we had we had been again, we got really, really close. I thought, oh, we can be best friends again. I ended up getting a job at the mall and meeting my now husband. And so he was a little older than I was, but we all hung out together. The whole staff hung out together.
on Fridays and Saturdays, we would, people would host parties, my now husband included, and we would go out to dinner and hang out after, shifts on the weekend when no one had to rush home for school. And we were a tight group. They kind of folded us into the group. And so there were a couple other individuals that I went to high school with who also worked at the store. And so I started becoming closer friends with them as well. So now, fast forward, I show up at school again, and now I have a whole bunch of people, friends, and even not even just acquaintances that will not talk to me. People are again spitting on me. Now they're writing in Sharpie awful messages on my locker. They are saying things to me in passing, saying things to me in class, and teachers aren't doing anything about it. I mean, it's just over and over and over. It's just the kind of stuff that's in nightmares. Those nightmares that you keep having that you're stuck in high school and all these horrible things are happening. It was really happening. And there was a part of me that just didn't want to keep going back, but I had a survival guide. So I learned from the previous experience. I had a survival guide and I had a wilderness wisdom that I was applying to this in real time. It wasn't my first experience and it wasn't my first experience with this individual. So I had a little bit of intel now to know how to navigate it better. I couldn't shut it down. I couldn't stop it. I couldn't reverse it. You can't do any of those things, but I had skills that I was implementing. And, again, coming back to that friend group, I thankfully had these other friends that I was able to, walk in the halls with and spend my time with outside of school and continue to work with. And so you make it through those things, and so you might wonder how you made it through those things. And so when it comes to making it through things like that, it really comes down to wilderness survival and wisdom. So, self-awareness and mindfulness living are what lead to improved quality of life. That was probably the biggest takeaways that I had from these experiences and from so many experiences after these younger experiences. And this applies to our inner and external wilderness. For our best quality of life, we really need to have a survival guide that helps us navigate our internal and external wilderness. This is essentially a life map. Before I get into a play-by-play breakdown of how to develop your survival guide and prepare your wilderness wisdom, I want to give you a few crisis and situational tips that you can use if you find yourself ill-prepared and need to react to something in real time. So here are a few strategies to keep in mind. First, maintain your calm as you assess the situation. I know it's really easy to start getting anxiety and panicking or freezing or fleeing. And yes, there are times that you have to get the heck out of Dodge, but most things require us to stay and be present in our own situations. It's our life. And so keeping that calm as you're taking things in, don't shut down. This is where your senses all get heightened, not quieted. So you are mentally noting everything you can. You're paying particular attention to any real and present danger. That's your first thing. And then you are establishing a hierarchy of priorities and actions. So that's super important. That's survival 101. You would do that in a real wilderness. If you got stuck in the woods or you got stuck in the desert or you got stuck somewhere, you would assess your situation and then you'd see what kind of provisions you have, and then you would establish a hierarchy of priorities and what actions you need to take first and when you would do that. Do you need to build a fire? Do you need to collect wood before you build a fire? Do you have a fire source? Do you need shelter? What kind of edible food? What kind of fresh water? All those different things. So if you think about it, it's not quite the same in these types of situations, but the metaphor applies. So you are also going to draw again upon those prior experiences, and they might not be similar, they just might be relatable, cross-relatable things where you are just bringing some kind of prior experience with dealing with situations, dealing with crises, dealing with individuals who might be difficult or might be spiteful, evil, you know, wreaking havoc on you. Because remember, we bring this prior experience and our knowledge with us everywhere we go. No one takes that from us. Just because we're in a new situation doesn't mean we don't get to carry that stuff with us. Okay, so I'm going to try to share with you another relatable survival guide or survival prep type of a thing that most of us have previous experience with. So usually when we get our license or when the weather changes, we are told to make sure we have proper provisions in our vehicle. Usually we have a spare tire and a jack and whatever else we might need in the event that we get a flat tire. We might have a toolkit in the event that we need something else, or jumper cables. We might also have, when the weather gets cold, extra water, extra pair of socks, maybe a blanket, sweatshirt, something along those lines. We have umbrellas in our cars. So if you just think about your car is equipped with all these survival tools and provisions in the event that you are out there, you're away from home where you usually have all of your provisions, and you need the essentials in case you find yourself stranded or broken down, that you can basically, navigate most situations without calling help. And whenever you can't navigate those situations, then you call in for help. So similar to that is we need to have the same thinking when it comes to how we navigate our emotional world and our interactions in our external world. So here are ways to develop your own survival guide and chart your own wilderness map. So number one, write and talk about it. I know you keep hearing me say journal, but really, whether you want to call it journaling or if you have a hang up about journaling and you just want to call it making notes, giving yourself reminders, whatever it is, journal, talk to someone like a therapist, a trusted friend, meditate, pray, do all of these things that involve some type of communication with self, communication with a higher power, or communication with a help source or a support source. Regardless of how you initially begin to explore these things, eventually consider writing them down. Commit things to the page. We're talking about a survival guide and a wilderness map, and these are physical items that inhabit a space. They inhabit like some form of a media, usually like something that's printed out that you can put on the wall or that you keep in a book or even a digital version that you have on a device that you can reference, that you can visually see the things that you have, committed to the page, so to speak. So explore some of these things to get to know and understand the landscape of your own inner and external wilderness. What are your internal conflicts and battles? You need to write these things down. You need to ask yourself these questions. What are those desires that haven't manifested yet for you? What are your goals and things you aspire to achieve and accomplish? What's getting in the way of these things? What are your values and beliefs? Do any of these conflict with each other? That's a thing we often don't take time to think about, but it's one of the most important things we have to think about. Because when we think about wilderness survival gone wrong, that's usually where it goes wrong. Not talking about the instances where someone is sabotaging you and or tripping you up or creating a crisis or situation for you. I'm talking about the roles that you play in your own life, in your own interactions. And, you know, do you understand yourself enough to know that maybe something that you're trying to engage in or that you desire doesn't align with your beliefs or your values? And so these two things are clashing. They'll never come into harmony with one another. And sometimes we just need to visually see this in writing to get it out of ourselves, to realize that we have some rewriting to do in our own survival guide and our own playbook when we try to assess or we try to establish what our goals are and what our dreams are. So that's something, don't underestimate that. Okay. What is your external wilderness like? So you want to ask yourself the same kind of questions and see what you uncover. Are there things that you like about this external wilderness? Things that you would change about it? What's there? What external obstacles keep you from fulfilling your dreams, desires, goals, values, and beliefs? Believe it or not, actually identifying these things sometimes helps you understand why a situation or a person got the better of you. So sometimes we're like, why do we keep getting stuck in this? Or why does this person keep trying to do that? Or again, sometimes we can figure out not really, we might not figure out why that person's doing it. That's a total them issue. But we can figure out why we keep reacting a different way that doesn't, shut it down better or change the outcome, change the atmosphere. And that often is our best power when we can't change people, is if we change our reaction to it, if we don't feed into it a particular way, then you don't feed the monster. the monster starves. That kind of thinking really is very effective thinking. You also need to be thinking about, have you experienced a loss, health crisis, or setback? Those are things that, trigger our trauma, trigger our grief. And when it comes to that grief, you should really ask yourself, have you allowed yourself to go through the grief process? So I break down 8 stages of grief in Warrior Sister Cut Yourself Free. And there are other grief stages, but the most important thing that you can do for yourself is learn to identify the different types of grief so that you can better navigate them and prepare yourself to get through them so that you don't get stuck on them or think that grief is just this like tiny little thing where you're just upset for a little while until you get over it and then move on. It's much more complicated than that. So I really encourage you to learn about the different elements of grief so that you can navigate it and really be free and have closure at the end of it. Do you feel particularly anxious or stressed about whatever challenge you're facing? Do you feel that in real time when it's happening? Do you feel it leading into the situation? These are all important things to identify. If so, do these feelings make you feel more vulnerable? That's always a really tricky, sticky ground because anytime we feel like we might be making ourselves vulnerable, then we tend to just backtrack. I'm not going to go in there. I'm not going to do this thing. I'm not going to face that. I'm not going to show my weakness, all those different things. I'm not going to show the ugly side of things, those things. That's why we get disillusioned living in an insta-perfect world when we see everybody else out there, primarily putting all of their positive, best pictures forward, best experiences forward. And it's really easy to think that you're the only one going through difficulties and struggles when everybody else has it together. And, that idea of being vulnerable then becomes, the biggest obstacle in the room. You need to identify these things because they are what drive our inner struggles. They drive our emotional distress. They drive our indecisiveness and our inability to make good choices that align with our inner compass. So that's the thing too I want to add here. When you're thinking about navigating your survival in your wilderness, whether it's your inner wilderness or your external world that you have to navigate with your internal, sensibilities, that you have a compass. And what's the true north on that compass? You have to know what that is because if you do not know how your inner compass works, you're never going to get on the right track. And you're always going to feel unstable and like you're on shaky ground. So, number two, self-assess and reflect. So you have to go back and review something you've written down. So even if you're just using a notes app or you're dictating some notes into your phone, you're still going back and you're reviewing these to assess what you notice. So are there patterns? Are there, like connectable things? Are there surprises or shocking revelations? You need to reflect on these things and then plan how you hope to navigate this wilderness. So I say this wilderness because the wilderness is constantly changing. Just like we have different seasons, and in those seasons, different things exist in the landscape, so too does our life. Our wilderness is always changing. It can be seasonal where it's coming back into, something recognizable, like this is typically my summer season, my autumn season, my winter season, my spring season. But we also go through seasons where it feels like we move to an entirely different region. And maybe there are only 3 seasons, and those seasons do not look anything like the seasons from our previous existence. You have to know how to navigate this new wilderness that's here right now in the present. So, like I mentioned in previous episodes, you have to know and establish boundaries, and you have to communicate those boundaries, and then you have to protect those boundaries. That's right. You have job to do. So when you can, either practice these skills that you're trying to uncover. You might have opportunities to practice them in similar situations, or you might just have to role play. You can role play with yourself in front of a mirror. You can role play with someone else with you. Sometimes someone else is struggling with the same thing, and it's great to have these support networks of people who hold you accountable, who share their own tips, and who are a good confidant and wise counsel to you while you're trying to while you're trying to work through some stuff and get a game plan for moving forward in similar situations. So, and like everything else, you adjust as you go. that might not work in this situation, or it might work every single time. Or again, you're in a different wilderness and those tools don't even apply here. You just need to adjust as you go. Number three, make time to invest in yourself. Plan and engage in activities that produce those happy hormones like serotonin, oxytocin, dopamine, and other endorphins. Physical activities are great for this. They give you the physical benefits along with the emotional benefits. I do all kind of athletic activities and they're also good for discipline. So, I'm a runner. I hike, I walk, I swim, I paddleboard. I used to play softball. I used to play volleyball on adult leagues and pickleball. There's all kind of things. They're all my favorite. I love them all. And I love going out, doing things with other people. Then you're enjoying, the laughter and the competitiveness and all the benefits that come with that. And I also love doing things by myself. So putting my paddleboard on the back of my car, heading out to the lake and paddleboarding all by myself is also a beautiful thing. Don't overestimate these physical activities. Whatever you enjoy. And if you enjoy doing that with other people, then do that. If you like to take classes, I remember years ago, my friend and I would take fitness classes together, and it would kick our butt. And we would take it and we would be laughing in there because we would be struggling. And then we would go out to eat afterward, and then we'd have that quality time together as well. Another thing that is a lifeline, has been a lifeline for me since I was a kid, is listening to music. And I know you're like, yeah, 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 listening to music, but there's something scientific about it, first of all. We have vibrations that energize us. And that happens with music that we don't even know why we like that particular music, but we gravitate toward it. And so that's the kind of music I'm talking about. Listen to that kind of music, that's your jam. And sing along if you want to sing along to it. I know there are times when I'm on a road trip or I'm by myself and I am karaokeing loud. I don't care. I'm proud of who sees me. I'm having fun with myself. And you can just feel the happy hormones filling you. And you're, again, spending quality time with yourself. My daughters, we go, same thing. Since they were kids, we put on the music we like. We're all singing along to it to this day. They're all adults. We still do that kind of stuff. We also watch movies we love. So a lot of those are comedy. There's, like I learned this early on with my oldest daughter, how therapeutic just watching your favorite movies could be. I didn't quite make that connection when I was her age. Sometimes I would just watch the movie, but not understanding exactly what it was doing. And so we would watch Bridesmaids. And that still to this day is like that movie where we're like, we think we have it bad. We're going to watch this movie and we laugh and it never gets old. And we laugh in anticipation of what we know is coming. And then we laugh through it and we laughed after it. And there's other movies like that too. But I always think about like if she or I are having a bad day and we're spending time together, that's like, let's watch that because we know that'll just make us smile and laugh. It'll just make everything else seem less sucky. Do something else that brings you joy. Like, I don't know, like my other daughter, she loves to shop. It's her serotonin fix. And so I know some of the things that I'm going to mention require money. And I know if you don't have the money, kind of makes it hard to go out and do things for yourself. But she loves to shop. And so shop and treat yourself to something new. It doesn't have to be big. It can be something small, like a pair of sunglasses. You can get those for cheap. They don't have to be $300 sunglasses. If you can't afford $300 sunglasses, you don't need $300 sunglasses. But you can go for ice cream just because. I do that all the time just because I love ice cream. I could eat it for every meal. I love ice cream. So if that's something that makes you happy, go for ice cream or go for a Slurpee. That's my husband's thing. He goes for a Slurpee. It's a small, little, tiny thing. It's not enough to kill all of your diet plans if you're trying to watch what you eat. It's just a little something to, again, make you happy. I've always loved ice cream. So every time I have one, it kind of brings me back to my childhood, my happy place. Plan a date out with friends or loved ones, or even yourself. Like I told you, I love to go paddleboarding by myself. I also love to go to the movies by myself or do other things. I have no problem going by myself. I love to sit in a hammock and read in the sun, hiding so no one else can find me because People don't like to see me by myself. They like to do things with me. Get a spa treatment. Any type of, I know they say like go for a massage. That's a lot of people say go for a massage. But, I remember the best spa treatment I ever had was a scalp massage. They washed my hair. It was so basic. And I thought, this is amazing. And it was like $30. It was like the best $30 I ever spent. And it was like a half hour, $30 for a half hour. And they massaged my shoulders and I felt amazing afterward. And I just remember thinking, I don't know, my friend told me to do it. I was like, I would not have picked that, but you know what? It was a lot cheaper than an entire massage, and it was exactly what I needed to get me back in that happy place and keep me happy for a long time. There's other social connections also. Like one of my favorite, I haven't done this in a while, but I used to do it often, is go to an animal shelter or a pet store and just go sit and pet all the little puppies and kittens or the other dogs and cats at the shelter. It is amazing. They love it and need it. And it's such a good boost. There's nothing like animal love. If you're allergic to them, obviously that's not a good thing for you. But this is one of my favorites, is going and spending time. I love animals. So going and spending time with them where I don't have to bring them home with me. Like I cannot take on any more rescue animals right now in my life. So the second best thing is to just go spend some time with them. Engage in a creative outlet. That's another thing that I have always loved to do. So whatever your creative outlets are, just go to them. And that's free. You don't have to spend any money on that. You don't have to go out and buy all new crafting things or all new painting supplies or, jewelry making things. Unless you want to and you can't afford to do that. But if you're just looking for like, look, I can't make it expensive every time I need to do this self, love kind of stuff, is do do something with what you already have at your disposal. Use what you have at your fingertips. So the other thing is you need to have a list. This is a survival guide. So you need to have a list of all these other things that make you smile and laugh. And then, have them ready to go so that you can pick from them in the future. But if none of the things I just mentioned there, write it down, write your list down, and then pick something. Our wilderness wisdom comes into play once we know what to do with our findings and discernment, as well as how to fill our time with enriching things that nourish our soul and spirit. It's all about what we do moving forward, what becomes part of our survival guide and wilderness map plot points. So that wilderness wisdom comes in when we pull all of these things together, and then we have this clarity and discernment and knowledge and this wisdom to know what to do with all of those things. And remember, your next move is what matters, not your last misfortune, misstep, or mistake.
Well, girl, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If so, don't forget to follow my channel and share it with girlfriends who also want to restore their self-worth and confidence. Also, if this podcast inspired you, consider leaving a 5-star written review on Apple Podcasts. And as you go through your day, may your empowered spirit, heart, and mind guide you. Catch new episodes every Tuesday and Friday. Ciao.